Hi everyone, for this lesson I'll show you how to solve quadratic equations. So let's take a look at this example here. We have our quadratic function y equals x squared minus 9, and here's the graph of the parabola. We can actually look at the parabola and see where it crosses the x-axis, which in this particular case it happens at -3 and 3. So these are called the roots or the solutions to the quadratic equation here that we started off with, which is y equals x squared minus 9. Another name for the roots or solutions for these 2 points are the x-intercepts. So we can actually call these 2 points the x-intercepts for the parabola, because that is where the parabola crosses the x-axis. So now if we were to look at the x-intercepts, that is the spot where y is equal to 0. So if we look back at our equation here, if we were to make y equal to 0, you'll end up with 0 is equal to x squared minus 9. Now we can actually solve for x. So let's add 9 to both sides, and we'll end up with 9 is equal to x squared. Then we'll take the square root of 9 and take the square root of x squared. So this will give us x is equal to plus or minus 3. Notice that the values that you found for x, plus or minus 3, is already indicated by the parabola here. That's where it crosses the x-axis, and we call it either the roots or the solutions of the quadratic function. Okay, so now let's take a look at this quadratic equation, y equals x squared. Now the corresponding parabola is to the left of it. And notice that there's only one point where it crosses the x-axis. Right? This is the x-axis here, and this is the y-axis. And therefore, for this parabola, there's only one solution. So here we can say there's only one solution. And that solution is right here at the origin, which is 0, 0. This is different from the last example where there were two solutions at -3 and 3. Now let's take a look at this parabola. This is from the quadratic equation y equals x squared plus 3. Notice that the parabola does not cross the x-axis. So there are no x-intercepts, there are no roots. Hence we can say that there are no real number solution for this quadratic equation. Alright, let's see what would happen to the value of x when we plug in 0 for y. 0 is equal to x squared plus 3. That's from this equation here. So now we have, that's minus 3 to both sides, and we'll get -3 is equal to x squared, and then we'll take the square root of both sides, so the square root of -3 is equal to the square root of x squared. So this will give you x is equal to plus or minus the square root of -3. But if you try to plug this into the calculator, it's going to give you an error, which shows that your parabola does not cross the x-axis. Algebraically, we can solve for the values of x, or the solutions of the quadratic equation, by making y 0. Right? If we replace y with 0, because that is where the parabola crosses the x-axis, that's when y is equal to 0. If we do that, this will become 0 is equal to x squared minus 36, and we can just solve for x. So here, we can just add 36 to both sides, and we'll end up with 36 is equal to x squared. So we take the square root of both sides, we'll end up with x is equal to plus or minus 6. So these two values, the plus and minus 6, represent the roots, the solutions, or the x-intercepts of the quadratic equation. And we're done, and we're happy.